let's talk about maybe some more realistic Super Bowl contenders. And Mike McClure, I'm going to start with you. Who do you have winning the Super Bowl?
See, I think we're looking at a three-peat here. Yes, it is no secret. I like the Kansas City Chiefs. I grew up in the area. It's been great for me the last really 5 years, but I like this team a lot. I think this is by far the best team as a whole that Patrick Mahomes has had to work with. When you look at both sides of the football, they actually have a considerable amount of depth. That defense, they've been able to retain a guy like Chris Jones, absolutely critical, especially when it comes to just putting pressure on opposing quarterbacks when you get to playoff situations. But on the offensive side of the ball, I love the roster when you've got a guy like Rashee Rice, Marquise Brown, Xavier Worthy. You've still got Travis Kelsey there. And then don't sleep on a guy that they ended up drafting, Jared Wiley, this tight end. I believe he's going to be Travis Kelsey 2.0. Very, very similar to Travis Kelsey, was also a quarterback previously, really understands the game well. I think they're going to use him. And then finally, I have to mention the special teams. We've got the rule changes in the NFL with kickoffs this year. They have a unique situation where they're going to be able to have a safety kicking off, adding an additional defender, and they signed the rugby superstar who was tracked with speed tracking metrics faster than any player ever in NFL history is joining this team that already has a ton of speed. As long as Mahomes is healthy, I think they've got to be the clear-cut favorite here. I like them to three-peat.
All right, Alex, Mike McClure, he said it. He's like, this sounds like a homer pick, but he's been on the Chiefs the last 2 years. He's been right about it. And I completely agree that this is a very well-rounded team. And the upgrades at the receiver position, very impressive. Now, I go from maybe homer pick to homer pick because you like a team that, is in your backyard. Who's the Super Bowl winner?
Yeah, I like the Philadelphia Eagles, see, and I mentioned this is the first year that I've picked them to win the Super Bowl, but I just thought they had a tremendous offseason. First and foremost, massive upgrades to the coaching staff. When you're adding an offensive coordinator like Kellen Moore, a defensive coordinator like Vic Fangio, compared to what the Eagles were working with last season, I looked at that as a massive, massive win for them. They also lock up all of the talent that they had, the homegrown talent. Devontae Smith signed to the big extension, A.J. Brown as well. Then they won free agency, in my opinion. There's certainly massive splash signing and Saquon Barkley really elevating that running back position. Defensively, I love the additions there as well. Bryce Huff, linebacker Devin White, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And then we get to the Eagles draft. Really thought they had just a fantastic draft from a value standpoint. Adding Quinyon Mitchell, adding Cooper DeJean, two of the top defensive back prospects in the draft. Howie Roseman just had a fantastic offseason, really put a bow on it with this draft. So I just love everything the Eagles did. I think top to bottom, this is as talented as any roster in the NFL. I think they're a super great price here as well. So I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles, who I expect big things from this season.
Speaking of talented rosters, Larry, we've got a talented roster that you like, and somehow they were able to upgrade it in ways that I didn't think they'd be able to. Talk to us about your Super Bowl winner.
Yeah, and I have no connection to Detroit or Michigan, so this is a completely objective take on a team that probably should have been in the Super Bowl last year. They had one big weakness, which was pass defense, and I'd argue they got the best corner in the draft in Terrion Arnold, and they also draft Ennis Rakestraw, and they bring in Carlton Davis, and now you can move Brian Branch to safety, and somehow you keep Ben Johnson, the brilliant offensive coordinator. You have the #1 offensive line. You have your first 7 games indoors and 13 of the first 14, and we all know how that benefits Jared Goff. And I think Jamison Williams is going to break out this season. So they are just loaded everywhere, and I think they fixed the pass defense. To me, that'll put them over the top.
They're definitely loaded. And for the record, the secondary sort of let them down in their collapse against the 49ers. But a lot of that was the bouncing off of the helmet of a secondary player into Brandon Ayuk's hands, which sort of sparked that entire comeback. Now, granted, 49ers could have won that game anyway. But speaking of the 49ers, I'm not going Commanders. That's my hometown team. I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers. The window is clearly closing, and that's not why I'm picking them. The fact that the window is closing is not an argument for a team, but this is a very good team that you could argue. I mean, it's not even an argument, a quarter away from winning a couple of Super Bowls over the last couple of years. The Chiefs have been in their way. They're probably the better team, particularly in clutch time. I just love the roster. I love the makeup of this team. They're still working off that rookie contract from Mr. Irrelevant. It's just a good time for a plus 650 to come in, to finally come in on the 49ers. So that's what I'm going with. Before we break, because we're about to get into MLB best bets, some MLB home run props where you all have been hot. We got model picks to come. We got to go to Super Bowl long shots, though, because I think there are some, this is a sport, the NFL, where some of these long shots are legitimately viable. Mike, let's start with your long shot.
It's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles here, Sia. And I know that's who Alex has winning it all. I completely agree. I think they're the team to watch in the NFC side. And I like the price point, plus 1,500, just the fifth best odds to win the Super Bowl. And I really think they should be second or third, frankly. When you look at what they've done in the offseason, as Alex mentioned, it's not just the on the field play, it's the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and just adding depth overall. I think this team, they were incredible to start the last season, really didn't play all that well down the stretch, but I think they've shored up a lot of those issues on the defensive side of the ball. And bringing in a guy like Saquon Barkley, he matters in this particular offense. A lot of running backs don't make a big impact. I really believe Saquon Barkley will in this one, because you're talking about a team that if they get into situations where they just need to win a game, need to get a first down, they're playing for 8 yards instead of 10 almost every time because of what they're able to do with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley there in that have to have it kind of situation. So for me, the Eagles, I think this number should be down to plus 800, plus 850 range. And I think it probably will be. If they win game one in neutral site in Brazil, that team's going 6-0 to start the season.
Yeah, it's 1st and 10 for most teams, 1st and 9 or 8.5 for the Philadelphia Eagles. I will say this, their number when the offseason broke and we started to see these lines was plus 2,000, which I said on this very show was extremely disrespectful. It's now down to its proper place, still some good value at plus 1,500. All right, Proper, we know you like the Eagles. What's a long shot pick?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns, a team that Larry likes week one. I look at this roster. I think it's one of the more talented rosters in the NFL. And considering the price point here of plus 4,000, 40 to 1 odds for this team, who I look at as one of the top rosters in the NFL. A lot hinges on the quarterback play. If Deshaun Watson can resemble maybe 80 or 85% of the quarterback that he was in Houston, I look at them as a legitimate Super Bowl, a viable contender. Defense last year finished first overall. They allowed 270 yards per game. That was the number one total in the NFL. The next one was 290 yards. So we're looking at an exceptional defense on paper. The offensive line graded out, according to PFF, as one of the top offensive lines, getting Nick Chubb back as well. They add Jerry Jeudy to the wide receiver room. So I look at this Browns roster. It's just oozing with talent. There's depth. I absolutely love the defense. Again, a lot hinges on Deshaun Watson, but if he's more comfortable in the system year 3, I really think this Browns team can make a lot of noise, and I think they have a legit chance if he's able to increase his play a little bit.
And I'll say this, Alex, it's not just more comfortable in the system. It's more comfortable with what was a complex shoulder issue that he had, a little bit more complex than you might have seen with Anthony Richardson, for example, coming off a shoulder injury as well. And I do think someone with a lot of shoulder injury experience is talking to you right now. And not that I'm an MD on this one, but I think in year 2, coming off that surgery, we could see something a little different from Deshaun Watson. All right, Larry, I'm looking for something a little different from you, except kind of the same, because I like your team to win the AFC East, which is an upset in a lot of people's eyes, but you like this team to win it all.
New York Jets at 22 to 1. I mean, Alex was talking about what if Deshaun Watson can be 80% of what he was? What if Aaron Rodgers can just be an average quarterback and stay healthy? That's all the Jets need. They have the championship defense. They replaced Bryce Huff with Hassan Reddick, which could be an upgrade. This defense was incredible, despite not even getting a lot of turnovers and despite being on the field the entire season, because they had such a pathetic offense that produced the fewest offensive touchdowns in the league. Well, they've revamped the offensive line. It could be a top 5, top 10 offensive line. You bring in Mike Williams along with Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. And if Aaron Rodgers can just manage the game, that's all we're asking for him now. He doesn't have to be an MVP. He just has to be competent. The New York Jets could win it all.
I absolutely love this pick, Larry. At 22-1, I absolutely love it. I'm going to go with the Packers. That's my long shot play. I've kind of been on them for most of the offseason. I will say, and I've said this before, the Detroit Lions probably the better team than the Packers, but I'm getting a plus 1900 on the Packers. I love how they close the season. I love this offensive system. I love how the receivers, who were largely injured most of the time, are really kind of plug and play, whether it's Christian Watson or Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, you name the receiver, they can fit into this system. A lot of upgrades in free agency and with the draft, punctuated by Xavier McKinney on the back end for the Packers. It's an up-and-coming team. It's a young team. They traded out Aaron Jones at 29 for Josh Jacobs at 26. I think a lot is going right, and I think once they're into the playoffs, it's anybody's game. They can beat anybody, almost beat San Francisco in the playoffs last year. Some might argue they should have beaten San Francisco along with the Detroit Lions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to hear about any of these teams, including a team-by-team preview, you name the team, we've got it. Go to sportsline.com/join or just scan that QR code. You type in winners as the promo code. You'll get 60% off the annual plan. That just doesn't include the NFL team-by-team previews. It literally includes every single thing at SportsLine, including our daily picks, our write-ups, our analysis tab with all of our articles. We cover every single sport, got simulations, model picks, you name it, it's got it. Go check it out, sportsline.com/join. Promo code winners.